Hello everyone, I'm Tabitha with Moonlight Custom Creations, and today I'm going to show you how to do a wood grain floral tumbler. So go ahead, stay tuned, watch the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's go ahead and let's get started.
All right, y'all, I have a 20-ounce skinny here that I have already prepped. We are starting out with 20 milliliters of epoxy and this wave mica powder that I got from the glitter grind. I am putting in about 2 to 3 scoops of this mica powder. And this is all preference. And what we're going to do is we're going to mix it up very, very well. You want to make sure that it is mixed thoroughly. And we are going to put this on our tumbler. Now that you have it mixed up all the way, you're just going to take this mixture and you're going to apply it all over your tumbler. I'm going to make this look like water. We are doing a wood grain with a river peekaboo. That's why I mix the mica powder and the epoxy, because I want to get a good base and I want it to look like a river or some water underneath here. And you want to make sure that you get really good coverage here. And don't press too hard with your fingers because you will get some of these white spots. You want to just glide your finger across the epoxy. That way you get a nice coverage of color. Now that we're done applying the mica powder and epoxy mixture, we're going to go in with the same mica powder wave from the glitter grind. And I'm just going to take my popsicle stick and I'm going to add it to some of these light spots. Now this will also give it some added dimension and some darker spots, because you know how water, it's not just one color. It has some depth and dimension to it. I'm going to go throughout and I'm going to sprinkle this mica powder around my tumbler, making sure that you don't get globs of it everywhere. So you're just going to take your finger and you're going to lightly tap the side of your popsicle stick or stir stick, whatever you have here. You're going to lightly tap, and that allows it to sprinkle onto the tumbler without getting globs of the mica powder in one spot. Now that our tumbler has stopped spinning and it is ready for the next step, we are ready to tape this off. So I'm just going to look around the tumbler and see what kind of turned out the best for this river. And I'm going to start in by taping that section off so we can do our wood grains. Now that I find the section that I want to tape off, I'm just going to take my painter's tape here, and I want to do it as more of like almost like a swirl, but not a full swirl. I just want to put it at a diagonal here. And I do put a little bit of the tape onto my pants just to get some of the stickiness off. And I don't want it to go all the way down at the bottom, and I don't want it to go all the way up to the top. So I'm leaving a small section at the bottom and a small section at the top. And you just want to kind of determine how large you want this river to be. I will be putting 3 strips of the painter's tape up against each other to get the effect that I want. And I'm not going to make it perfect at all. I do not want straight lines, and I do not want it to be perfect. I want it to be kind of jagged, because at a river, it's not straight. Now that we applied our painter's tape, we're going to go in with this X-Acto knife, and I'm going to make the edges rigid. So I'm just going to go in with my X-Acto knife, and I'm going to do just up and down motions along the side here. Really, I did not map this out. Just however I felt. I'm just going up and down with my X-Acto knife just to get rid of that straight line here. And as you can see, it's more of a bank here instead of just a straight line, which that's exactly what I'm going for. And we're going to repeat the same process on the other side. And that's what we're left with. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray paint this entire thing with Rustoluem flat white in preparation for our wood grain. Now that our spray paint has dried, we're getting ready to start our wood grain. Now, what I'm using here is I'm using brown from Let's Resin. I do have coffee here, which is a slightly darker alcohol ink as well. I don't end up using that one, so I just use this one color brown from Let's Resin. Now, what you want to do is I like to apply it to my tumbler, so I do a stripe just like that, and I will do just strokes. What I'm using here is a sponge brush. You could also use just a paintbrush, more of like a chip brush, but I like using the sponge brushes because I like the way that it gives me the contrast that I like, and I like how my wood grains turn out with the sponge brush. And they're very, very cheap. Now you just want to do in swiping motions, top all the way down to the bottom, all the way back up to the top. Now you could just do it in one direction. I like doing it like this because I like the effect that it gives me. But that's what you're going to do throughout the entire tumbler. You're just going to put a strip of alcohol ink, and then using a back and forth motion, you're going to go back and forth over the tumbler. Now, as you can see here, I'm going over the paint or the painter's tape. Of course, I'm going over the paint, but I'm going over the painter's tape. That doesn't matter. I'm just trying to make sure that my wood grain is all even. That way, whenever I take the paint off or the painter's tape off, oh my goodness, I can't talk today, guys. Whenever I take the painter's tape off, it'll all blend just very naturally. And I do like going over some sections repeatedly, and that'll give me more of a wood grain look as well. Instead of just doing a few strokes to getting it covered, I like to go over it to get those lighter spots and those darker spots. Now we're going to go in with the bottom. What I like to do is I just like to make some swirls along the bottom, and I am so sorry I'm out of frame right here. But I just like to make some swirls, and then I just start painting on the bottom, going back and forth motions and then up and down all throughout the bottom of the tumbler. And that gives you the nice little wood grain. I do like to go in circles as well so that it's like almost like a cut off portion of the wood. Now, as you can see right here, I did go in with the darker color. Really did not care for what was going on there. So I just went in with the brown that I was using and made sure that I liked how my wood grain was looking to give it a little bit more dimension and to kind of darken up those lighter spots, because I really want this river to pop whenever I take the painter's tape off. And that's the wood grain. It's really easy to achieve. This is like one of the easiest tumblers to do, and it looks absolutely gorgeous, and you can do so much with it here. Now you can keep it as a lighter look if you would like. You don't have to go in a second time. It's all just personal preference, however you want your wood grain to look. I personally just like the darker wood grains, but that's just me. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let this dry before we take this painter's tape off. And I will be back to show you the next step. Now what I'm going to do here, now that it is dry, I'm going to go in with my little weeding tool, and I'm going to very, very carefully peel this painter's tape up. You do not want to nick your wood here, otherwise you will have little scratch marks, and we do not want that. So you're going to very carefully peel up this painter's tape. Now, once you get all the painter's tape pulled up, you are going to spray this down with Rustoluem 2 times clear, because you want to make sure that your alcohol inks are sealed in before you put the epoxy on. Now, as you can see, I do have a little bit of bleeding. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take just a little bit of alcohol and a paper towel, and I'm going to go in and clean up any bleeding that may have occurred. So I have a little spot here. I'm just going to go in and scrub. Make sure that you don't put a lot on there. That way it runs. You do not want it to run because it will go on your alcohol ink. So I am just going to clean those spaces up before I seal it. Now that our Rustoluem 2 times clear has dried, we are ready to create some magic with this baby. We are putting some epoxy on here, and I'm doing about 15 to 20 milliliters of epoxy. And I also have some medicine cups with some epoxy in it as well. Now you want to make sure that you smooth out your epoxy, just doing a normal epoxy layer here. And we're also going to go in with some mica powders to doctor up this river a little bit. Now that we have a layer of epoxy on, we're going to go in with our mica powders. The first one I'm going to use is Arctic, and this is like a shimmery white. Absolutely love this mica powder. It is gorgeous. And we're going to put that in with our first cup of epoxy here. I'm also going to go in with Joker for our second cup. And I'm putting 1 to 2 scoops in each one of these cups. And lastly, we're going to go in with Wave, which is the base, is what we used. Now, I have a popsicle stick for each one of my mica powders here. You want to make sure that these are stirred up very, very well in with your epoxy. And with this Arctic mica powder, I'm also going to put in just a little bit of apple barrel white just to give it a little bit more of a white color. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop my turner here. And I have these little silicone tools, which is what I'm going to use. So right now I'm just painting on the mica powder. And I'm also doing like a little dabbing motion along here. And this is going to give me the effect that the water is crashing up against the bank and really give us more of like a wave. And I'm also stopping and starting my turner again. That way I have a nice little workspace and I'm not trying to chase the tumbler. I want to make sure that I get a nice, even, pretty good coverage right in through here. And that will also mask the line of the wood grain between the water. And I don't want my waves to move very much either. Now, if your waves do start to move, just take your silicone tool, and what I like to do is draw lines going towards the water, and that'll give it a little bit more like motion with the waves and the water. And if you see any spots just running, you can go ahead and take a gloved finger and wipe those off, or use your silicone tool and just push that epoxy towards the water. And now I'm just going to go in with and just kind of work on the waves a little bit as the tumbler is turning. That way I know how it's going to flow. And I'm also doing my turner back and forth, switching directions, because I don't want it just to go in one direction, because the mica powder will just flow in that one direction. So you kind of want to mix it up as you're doing this as well. Now that we're done with the Arctic, we're going to go in with Joker. Now this will be at the center of the river or the body of water. Now I'm just going to take my silicone tool just like I did with the Arctic, but with this one I'm just going to draw lines throughout the water. Now this will give it some more dimension and look like the water is moving and it has different colors in the water. I absolutely am in love with this, but this is what you're going to do here. You're just going to work in that mica powders and just creating these lines like the water is moving. Just right here, you can do whatever your little heart desires. I'm also going to go in with this wave with this blue, and I'm going to mix that in with the Joker using the same concept and just painting in wave lines or squiggly lines, because that's what I'm doing. Just doing squiggly lines, and that gives it the illusion that the water is actually moving and it's rushing. I also go in with some more Arctic and put that in the middle as well. In my mind, like when the waves crash up against each other or it hits a rock or something, you get that white color in there. So I wanted to add some of the Arctic in there as well. Now I'm going to go in with a gloved finger and just kind of move everything together, make everything kind of mix. And I'm also going to fix any waves that may be traveling a little bit too far. I'm going to push it back towards the water. You're just going to continue going back and forth until you reach the desired look that you're going for. Once I achieve the look that I am going for, I'm just going to go ahead and let this spin for the full curing time, which is about 12 hours. Now, can we just take a minute and look and see how beautiful this tumbler is? Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous. So now I have a bunch of these water slides, these flowers that I'm going to put along this stream of water. So I'm just going to figure out the placement that I want and go ahead and start applying. I like to get the tumbler wet as my water slides are soaking. That way it goes on really nice. Now, once the water slide is easily removed from the backing, you can go ahead and apply your water slides on here. Normally, I apply them face down, but in this case, I did it the normal way. And you're just going to want to smooth out those water slides. Now, I will be overlapping these water slides as well, which you can do. It's perfectly fine and everything will blend. Now, you want to do this to both sides of this body of water. And after you're done, you want to make sure that these water slides are completely dry before putting a layer of epoxy over top. Now, I was going to put a quote on here. I want you guys to let me know in the comments, should I put a quote on here? Or do you think it looks fine just plain? I went ahead and I left it plain because I figured I would ask you guys to see your opinions. And this is what it looks like after all the water slides are applied. I'm absolutely in love with this tumbler. All right, y'all, I went ahead, added 2 coats of epoxy, and this is the finished result. I am so obsessed with this tumbler. It looks so good. The river, oh, it just turned out so good. I really hope this tutorial inspired you to make your own tumbler. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching my videos, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Thank you all so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.